Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Naruto Was the Western Emperor Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. The continent of the elemental nations is much bigger than people realize, as it was once part of a much larger land mass than the maps that are shown today. If one was to look at the map, they would see that the map doesn't show what is in the west, beyond Iwa and Suna, beyond the country of earth and wind. For you see, all of the elemental countries are located at the eastern side of the country as a whole, and what lies beyond those two countries is a giant wall, stretching for miles, from the most northern part of the continent to the southern part, completely sealing the east from the west. It is this wall that holds back the violence from the west spilling over to the east. When comparing powers, the West were superior from the East in every way, whether it would be technology, fighting styles, or even powers. The comparison between was so huge that it was like having a huge demonic dragon reigning over his land versus a small frog in his small well. Nobody, from the cages of shinobi villages to the daimyos ruling over their domain, would risk crossing this wall. Even the legendary Uchiha Madara himself dared not to cross over the wall in fear he would draw attention to even one war-hardened factions there. Beyond this massive wall, a wall that was forged during the time of the Sage of the Six Paths by the sage himself were warlords, samurais, shinobis, assassins, and even demons that all fought to protect their own individual territories from their rivals. It had been the reason why the sage made this wall in the first place, as he knew the East would easily be consumed by the powers of the West without the wall. Years later, the Uzumaki clan from Whirlpool were commissioned by many feudal lords of the East to use their mastery of the sealing arts to cover the walls with seals to prevent deterioration and strengthen it. Before he died, the Sage of the Six Paths proclaimed that if the conflicts of the West was brought over to the East, more than one half of the East would be wiped out before a proper counter-response could be mounted. Of course, legends and myths fade through the passage of time. The warnings were ignored as the East believed themselves to be powerful, perhaps invincible. Nobody dares to cross over, though. Why would they? There was no point in going over to a war-torn land to conquer if they believed nothing of value could be obtained. Through time, warnings were ignored as the arrogance and stupidity of the East grew. Until a single incident would become the catalyst that would completely shake the very foundations of the East. And that specific incident came on a day when Uchiha Sasuke decided to defect from Konoha to join Orochimaru, but failed to accomplish that goal thanks to the effort of one Uzumaki Naruto, and was brought back to Konoha. The two had fought each other in brutal battle, as Naruto was on a mission to bring Sasuke back to the leaf, while the Uchiha's own was to slay his pursuer for greater power. Naruto had suffered 2 Chidori to his chest but endured the lethality of the jutsu, and the pure torment that came along with the rest of his injuries from the battle to return Sasuke back to Konoha. On the last clash of Chidori versus Rasengan, Naruto used 2 taels worth of chakra to overwhelm Sasuke. The blonde shinobi hoped his actions would prove that he was not a monster, was not the Kyuubi, and most importantly, finally prove himself worthy of Konoha's recognition. The council, composed of 11 civilians, 11 clan heads, 2 advisors, and the Hokage, would finally acknowledge him. He was sadly mistaken. Flashback begins. Genin Ninja number 012607 Uzumaki Naruto. Tsunade said in a dull voice, not trusting her voice, "It is my duty to inform you that a vote has taken place, and a majority decision of 17 to 8 has been made in the council to strip you of your rank and banish you from Konoha, effective immediately. The reason being is that you have inflicted grievous damage to the last Uchiha despite your mission. You have until next sunset to leave the Leaf Village, and should you ever return, you will be killed on sight." Another reason that Tsunade didn't say out loud was that everyone had felt Naruto use the Kyuubi's chakra and was afraid of the fox getting loose, even though the 4th sealing ability would never allow it. Naruto had been summoned to the council while still sporting many injuries from his battle. The council didn't even allow Naruto to recover from his wounds before being banished. Naruto looked crestfallen at this statement as he looked around at the council. The civilians and advisors all had smug looks on their faces, enjoying the fact that the demon brat would finally leave, the curse would be gone. Danzo had 2 votes, as he controlled the Shimura and was the current voice for the Uchiha until Sasuke was of age, and used them to banish Naruto. He had his own plans, of course, of forcibly recruiting the Jinchuriki into route while he was no longer in the village's sight. The last clans to vote for the banishment was the Kuruma and Inazaka clan, who had thought Naruto was the Kyuubi, one through popular opinion and the other by instinct and smell. The rest of the clan heads looked at the voters in disdain. Tsunade looked like she was about to cry as she saw Naruto's heartbroken face, and resisted showing any emotion in front of the heartless bastards who ripped Naruto's dreams away from him. Naruto slowly took off his headband before laying it on the floor. He reached to take off his necklace, only to be halted by Tsunade. "Keep it. It's yours, and I hope it'll protect you," Tsunade said, tears already leaking out. Naruto left the council room, heading back home to pack up. Flashback ends. Before the council was dismissed, the 17 voters quickly also revoked the Sandame's law about Naruto being the container of the Kyuubi, allowing the young generation to learn the truth. The news spread fast amongst them, and reactions varied from one extreme to another. As Naruto walked back to his home to pack, he saw the rest of the Konoha 12, excluding himself and Sasuke. "That baka deserves to die for hitting Sasuke-kun," ranted Sakura. "Agreed. We should go find that demon and kill him," Ino shouted, agreeing with Sakura. "He was the fox all along, I should have known. I could smell that scent off him, he should have died," growled Kiba. "How unyoutful? Naruto has lied to us and was the fox," exclaimed Lee. Naruto was already crying and almost lost hope, contemplating suicide when a voice he thought he would never hear say this rang out. "Shut up, Lee," said Neji coldly. Lee looked shocked at this statement and was about to argue when he saw Tenten also staring coldly at him too. "He is like me, no worse off than me. He has a seal like mine, except worse. Even with this caged bird seal, I am acknowledged among the people as a shinobi and a prodigy. Naruto has a seal that holds the Kyuubi at bay, and yet many people in this village despises him. And yet, sinking into despair, he kept defying his fate as a scapegoat. He even forced me to see that fate was, indeed, a bitch and that I should not go along with it. Even I am familiar with seals, as I use it for my weapons. A scroll holding a kunai is not the kunai itself. Naruto is still Naruto, while the Kyuubi is inside, sealed away," added Tenten. "These idiots can't even tell the difference between a scroll and a kunai." Hinata was crying, although Naruto was unsure why. "Troublesome," muttered Shikamaru. He also believed Naruto was not the Kyuubi but was currently unable to form words as he was too mad. Choji stood behind Shikamaru, eating his way through his 4th bag of chips. "Thank you," said Naruto silently, as he left for his house. Shino was forgotten in all this. The news spread fast among everyone that Naruto had been banished, and the majority of the citizens were celebrating. Shinobis and kunoichis were getting rowdy and celebrating the fact that the demon that had plagued them for so long was gone. Only a few citizens and shinobi were depressed that a shinobi was being banished for doing his job. As night fell upon the town, people were still celebrating. Naruto, however, was gathering his meager items into his pack and getting ready to leave. Kakashi and even Jiraiya, his 2 teachers he thought he could depend on, never showed up to even say anything. As he was about to cry himself to sleep, somebody knocked on his door. He didn't want to get it, guessing that it was one of the people who hated him, but the knocking became insistent. He got up and opened the door and yelled, "What do you want? Can't you leave me in peace?" He looked up and saw it was Hiashi, clan head of the Hyuga clan. Behind him was Hinata, who was blushing and poking her fingers together, as she didn't know why she was here either. May I come in, Naruto? I promise I won't hurt you, stated Hiashi. Stunned at this, he let them both in before closing the door. After Hiashi came in, he quickly closed all the windows and blinds before placing a silencing seal on the walls. This conversation never happened, Naruto, stated Hiashi seriously. Naruto gulped, not knowing why he was here. I have come to ask you for a favor, Hiashi said, surprising both Naruto and Hinata. I need you to take Hinata with you on your exile. Hinata started to cry and tried her best to stop the tears. My father doesn't even want me anymore, she thought sadly to herself. Naruto was mad. How could a father abandon her daughter like this? The next statement, however, surprised both of them. I do not have much time anymore from preventing my daughter from being branded with the caged bird seal. I do not wish for her to be locked up in a cage and sent to a loveless marriage, all to increase the Hyuga's wealth. I have tried my best, but the elders have decided against my decision to brand her and sell her off to someone. I would rather have her fly freely with someone whom she loves and become a missing nin than to see that happen, said Hiashi. He lowered his head to the ground, bowing to Naruto. Please, protect my daughter. Naruto was astounded that someone of Hiashi's status would be willing to bow to him, while Hinata was surprised and felt loved. All those years of insults within the Hyuga clan, and her father actually loved her, even if his actions did not seem like it. I promise I will, Datbeo. But why me? I thought you hated me. Naruto said. Hiashi laughed at this, scaring both pre-teens. I could never hate you. You are the son of my best friend. You know my family. Tell me please, interjected Naruto, desperate to learn about his family. All his life, people told him how he was unwanted, that he was abandoned. The third Hokage always said differently but never revealed his heritage to him. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to on the risk of treason, spat Hiashi. Naruto seemed to despair at this. I believe this is over. On a side note, I'm going to suddenly become absent-minded and drop something and never remember it at all. It might contain information about your family, though it would be best if you read it after you have left the village. Hiashi said as he stood up and, accidentally, dropped a scroll in front of Naruto. Hinata, come, we have much to prepare. As they left, Naruto was left stunned on his bed when he suddenly went into a trance and appeared in his mindscape. He looked around and saw the Kyuubi staring back at him. What do you want? Asked Naruto coldly. The Kyuubi could only sigh. I guess it is my fault you're being banished, Kit. Though I never understood why you wanted to be Hokage of this forsaken place. Naruto remained silent at this. It was true he wanted to be Hokage, but would never see it. Even if he hadn't been banished, he realized that the people would never allow him to become Hokage due to their hatred for being the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. My point being, is, as an apology, I'll help you train using my power, said the Kyuubi. Naruto instantly didn't trust him, but said he would consider it. That night, Naruto wasn't alone as he thought he would be. Tsuki and Ayame closed down their shop for the day and brought ramen to try to cheer Naruto up. Iruka came along with them, as they were all frustrated that Naruto had been banished for doing his job. In the end, all good things came to the end as sunrise came too soon. Naruto had packed all his belongings before preparing to leave. He left quietly out of Konoha, as he did not want to stay there any longer. Hinata had already been snuck out earlier by her father and was waiting at a tree where they had agreed to meet. After meeting with Hinata, both took one last look at Konoha before traveling west. The plan was to travel to Suna, where they might be able to find sanctuary. Before they even went 1 mile out, they were intercepted by two people they never expected to see. Neji and Tenten were waiting by some trees, with gears packed and seals ready to go. What are you guys doing here? Asked Naruto. Neji Nisan, Tenten, stuttered Hinata, terrified they were there to bring her back. Relax, we're going with you, stated Tenten. Hinata-sama, I have sworn to protect you. I cannot protect you if you leave, so I will accompany you, proclaimed Neji. At this, both Naruto and Hinata started to have tears in their eyes. They tried to convince them to go back, that they would be fine, but were unable to do so. Instead, they decided to stop after moving ahead a little more to allow Neji and Tenten more time to think about their decision before going too far out. The night quickly fell upon the four travelers, so they decided to rest at an opening they found. Naruto tried to convince Tenten and Neji one more time to head back, but both were stubborn. Neji swore to protect Hinata, and Tenten wanted to go with Neji while leaving Konoha's corruption. Since she was also an orphan, she wasn't really leaving anyone behind. Suddenly, some bushes shook from behind them. Grabbing their kunai and going into taijutsu stances, they met Hanabi and Konohamaru. Boss, Oni-san, cried out Hanabi and Konohamaru, both of them going to Naruto and Hinata and hugging them. What are you two doing here? You need to go back, it's not safe, yelled Naruto. I'm not leaving you, boss, cried out Konohamaru. I didn't want to be alone, Hinata-ne-san, said Hanabi as she cried her eyes out. After letting tears flow out of all of them, Naruto finally asked the question that had popped out of their minds. How did you find us? Some ninjas lead us to you, they said they were going to help you, said Konohamaru. At this, they all froze. Inside Naruto's mindscape, the Kyuubi suddenly yelled out, Kit. Dodge. Move, yelled Naruto. As they all moved, the ground they were standing on was suddenly filled with shurikens and kunai. Seeing how close to death they had just been, Hanabi and Konohamaru couldn't stop shaking. 10 shinobis with Anbu mask and the root sign on their masks appeared. Naruto Uzumaki, you will accompany us back to Danzo-sama where you will be trained for his greatness, stated their leader in a monotone voice. The shinobi looked around and saw the others. 3 Hyugas, 1 Sarutobi, and an orphan. You will all come with us for training with Danzo-sama too. You do not have any choice. I'm not going back to that hell hole, yelled out Naruto as he took a fighting position. Everyone took up fighting positions until there was another interruption, making the situation seem worse. Well, if it isn't the Kyuubi brat, said Kisame. Naruto, come with us, said Itachi with an emotionless voice. Crap, this couldn't get any worse, thought Naruto. HMPH. Let me take over for a while and I'll show them what it means to mess with me, the Lord of Foxes, shouted the Kyuubi. Naruto shook his head. He couldn't trust the demon to protect his friends yet. Suddenly, one of the root Anbu made a hand seal, causing Neji to suddenly collapse in pain. The man removed his mask to show that he was a main branch Hyuga that had come under the disguise as a root Anbu. Ha ha ha. Not only can we get rid of the weakling heirs of Hiashi, but we can also put the branch family in their place, laughed the shinobi. Neji. The young shinobis cried out. Goo, leave me, save yourselves, roared out Neji as he clutched his forehead. I won't leave you, cried Tenten. What do I do? Though Naruto, everything was going bad, and a deal with the devil or a miracle could save them now. Said miracle suddenly came crashing through some trees. Incoming, shouted a figure before crash landing right into the middle of all of them. The Akatsuki members watched in amusement, young shinobis in confusion, and Root without any emotion. Soon the dust cloud cleared out and a young man with slick black hair combed back with a few stray hair in front of his forehead came out from the crater he had created. He had a yellow tank top, blue wushu pants, and green wristbands. His brown eyes, though, told them that this was a warrior. Woot! New jump record, yelled the figure, clearly ignoring the situation he was in. He looked around before spotting Neji, who was still on the ground clutching his forehead. He was clearly assessing what was wrong with him. Naruto and Hinata took positions in front of him while the rest were still trying to get Neji up. Before anyone could move, he suddenly disappeared and reappeared in front of Neji. Before anyone could do anything, the man around removed Neji's headband and was curiously peering at the caged bird seal. Cool souvenir, said the man as he put a piece of paper on Neji's forehead. Before anyone could figure out what was happening, a loud ripping sound could be heard, followed by a scream of sudden pain. Did he just put a piece of sticky tape paper on the brat's forehead? Asked Kisame curiously. Bastard, growled Naruto as he tried to tackle the man with Hinata, who completely dodged it without much effort. Wait, look at his forehead, exclaimed Tenten in shock. Everyone looked and saw that instead of the caged bird seal, there was now just a red mark on Neji's forehead. What? Impossible, growled the Hyuga. He ran up to the man to try to deliver a Juken strike to the man's heart. Before he could, though, a foot ended up right on his face. Nice job running into my foot, joked the man as his leg was stretched out in front of him. Frustrated, the Hyuga swiped the foot away and tried to hit him, but the man was too agile. You're within range of my divination. 8 trigrams 32 palms. Yelled the Hyuga. Before the first palm even went off, the man grabbed the Hyuga by his wrists, effectively stopping the attack. Hope you're ready for a beatdown, cause here it comes. Shout the man as he broke both the Hyuga's wrist. The shinobi couldn't even react as the other man tossed him down before laying a barrage of fists that even Itachi had trouble seeing with his Sharingan. Well, that was boring, said the man before looking around. At this, all the root Anbu jumped into action. Hand seals were blazing through all of them, hoping to use a long-range jutsu to finish this dangerous man off. Fire style, fireball jutsu, yelled out many of them. Soon, 9 fireballs were flying towards the man, who was just standing there. Watch out, yelled Hinata. She couldn't stand to see someone who had saved them die. Naruto was about to use his shadow clones when the Kyuubi spoke up. Kid, watch carefully. Huh, grunted Naruto. The Kyuubi continued, this man isn't ordinary. He might be even more powerful than me. Before Naruto could comprehend what the Kyuubi just said, the man shifted his position a bit so that his left part of the body was facing towards the root shinobis. His left hand was covering his right fist that was behind his body. As the fireballs came closer, he threw his right fist out in front and yelled out, shotgun. Without the use of any hand seals, the man's hand glowed bright blue and started shooting out many tiny blue blasts from the fist. It went right through the fireballs, extinguishing them and hitting all the root ninjas. Within seconds, they were all dead. Well, that was easy, said the man while rotating his arms around. He looked at the others, who were still in awe of him. Seeing this, he started bragging. I'm awesome, right? Said the man while his nose seemed to be growing longer. Everyone's sweat dropped at this. Itachi was the first one to shake it off before turning his attention back to Naruto, although he still kept a wary eye on the man. Come with us, Naru. Itachi stopped and noticed something wrong with this picture. Naruto no longer had a headband, which was weird since he wanted to become a Hokage from past facts. There were 2 clearly unmarked Hyugas and 1 X-marked Hyuga, and 2 other random people. None of them seemed to be on a mission, but rather were trying to run away. Before he could contemplate this further, the man suddenly stood between him and the children. Listen, buddy, I don't know why you want these brats, but if you want them, then you have to go through me first, stated the man as he pounded his fists together. Kisame looked gleeful and was about to attack when Itachi suddenly raised his hand first, cutting off Kisame from attacking. Kisame glowered at Itachi, but lowered his sword. Naruto, explain. Are you no longer a shinobi? Itachi asked. At this, Naruto lowered his head in shame and tears, confirming that it was true. At this, Itachi took a step forward and turned to Kisame. This is where we part ways, he stated. Kisame looked at him confused. I made a promise to protect Konoha and uphold the fourth's wishes. Clearly, Konoha has fallen from its grace, but I will not fail the other one. Leave if you do not wish to fight, for I do not wish to have to kill you. Kisame looked at Itachi as if he was crazy before sighing and sitting down. I may have joined Akatsuki for fun, but even still, you're still more fun to be with. I'll go with you and leave Akatsuki. Itachi stood still for a while before acknowledging Kisame's decision before turning to the man. Thank you for protecting them. No problem, replied the man. What's wrong with blonde, though? After everyone got comfortable around the campfire again, Naruto explained his story to all of them. After finishing his life story, the man looked like he was ready to march to Konoha and destroy them. My foolish little brother, muttered Itachi, it looks like he has fallen further than I imagined, along with Konoha. In that case, why don't you come with me? Said the man. Everyone looked at him, thinking about before they decided to ask the big question. Where are you from? Asked Tenten, who had Neji's head on her lap. From the west, over that giant wall, stated the man. Everyone froze. They had been educated that anyone from the other side of the wall was dangerous. Kisame looked even more excited to fight him now. How did you wind up here? Asked Hinata. I jumped. Was doing a jumping contest against my friend and I took a bit too far, stated the man. I can protect you guys. Although I admit, you Easterners really are weak. Not much of us bother going over the wall since it usually repels most of us, but I'm an exception. Though I warn you, the West is really chaotic. Lots of fighting almost every day. They all looked at each other before agreeing to go with him. Naruto, Hinata, Tenten, Neji, Hanabi, and Konohamaru didn't have anywhere else to go now. Itachi was going to protect the Fourth's legacy, and Kisame was more excited to see the West, where he had heard that there were people even more powerful than him. Everyone packed up after sleeping at night and left in the morning. This is where it begins. This is where Naruto and his friends go to the West, where they never see the elemental nations until much later. This is where Naruto grows up, and along with his friends, becomes Emperor of the West. By the way, who are you, Dadbayo? Asked Naruto. Right, never introduced myself. I'm the badass in my land. One of the strongest people in my land. The name is. 7 years later. The Imperial Palace of the West was a sight to see. Its majestic building along with its vibrant culture could be the envy of any nation. The gardens were filled with beautiful and rare flowers, all neatly organized to enhance the view. Inside the building, there was majestic red carpets with golden linings. Any place the carpet was not touching was high-quality wood, and the walls were made of finest materials. Doors were made of the best quality, and each door knob and intricately designed. On the walls were paintings, made by the most skilled artists. What were the paintings of? The subject was, of course, the emperor himself. Each painting could be seen with him in it, fighting and bleeding in war. Other paintings were peaceful ones, some of it with his family. Most people knew that this family had come from the east with one of theirs. Most of them scoffed when they first saw them, but they proved themselves to be worthy. After years of fighting and negotiating with various warlords, they rose and formed this new empire, the Empire of the West. In the centuries of fighting, there was finally peace in this land. Now, warlords who had fought against each other for blood and land now pledged loyalty to the emperor. The man himself was sleeping on a king-sized bed, slightly drooling. With his sun-kissed blonde hair, the man's most noticeable part of his face was the whiskers. Beside him was a beautiful woman with long dark blue hair and was currently cuddling with the emperor himself. Soon, the sun was up, the birds were singing, and splash! Both of them woke up with a water balloon thrown at their face. Time to wake up. Sputtering, Naruto and Hinata woke up from their activities last night. Standing on the balcony was the man who brought them over to the west, Yusuke Urameshi. Next to him was a 6-year-old pink-haired girl named Yakiru Kusajishi. Hehehe. King-san and Booby-chan are awake. You'll pay for that, Naruto roared as the two pranksters quickly jumped off running. Before he launched himself out the window, Hinata grabbed him back. You don't want to go out without any clothes. I'm the only one who's allowed to see you in all your glory, said Hinata. Blushing, Naruto quickly put on some clothes. Before leaving to chase them, he kissed Hinata soundly before leaving. Hinata stretched her arms up before relaxing, letting her impressive bust jiggle a little. She looked out the window before getting dressed. As Yusuke and Yakiru were running from Naruto again, who was throwing random items at them to stop again, they passed by 4 people. There he goes again. Honestly, you'd think he would act his age for once, and not corrupt little children, too. Sighed Tenten as she was holding to Neji's hand. They had married around the same time Naruto and Hinata did, making it a double wedding. When they had first arrived at the West, there were so many things for them to learn. Luckily, Yusuke was there to help them, along with his friends. Although Hiei with his sarcastic manner would usually piss them off. After a year of living with them, Naruto then had the dream of uniting the lands, making it peaceful. At first, many laughed, but Yusuke thought it was a good idea. Since then, they went to other warlords and fought for lands, negotiated on others, and learned different skills. Tenten went under the tutelage of a ninja clan, who was led by Yuffie Kasaragi. I think Yakiru was already like that before Yusuke even reached him, replied Neji. He took the gentle fist to new heights after fighting so many different masters, especially those from the building of Ryazanpaku, where he trained with their grand disciple. The masters still kicked his butt after all these years, but he was closing the gap a little. Although small in members, each of their members was accomplished masters in their art. Hanabi and Konohamaru nodded in agreement with Neji. These 2 young shinobis were a couple a year after uniting the West. They kept arguing with each other so much before, but in the end, Konohamaru just gave up, grabbed her, and kissed her. Hanabi blushed so hard that she showed that she was indeed Hinata's sister and fainted. Both of them had learned so much from learning under Naruto and Neji, following them as their guides. Stop moving, yelled Naruto as he started to throw kunais. Yusuke and Yakiru were still laughing as they ran out to the sparring grounds. Here, sounds of swords and other weapons clashed clanging against each other could be heard. Yakiru quickly climbed up to the shoulder of Zaraki Kenpachi. Ken-san, King-san not happy about a joke. She giggled. Yakiru, we discussed this, don't climb onto me when I'm fighting, groaned Kenpachi. His opponent was actually Kisame, who just shrugged. We can fight later. Looks like Emperor's up anyways. On the side sipping his tea was Itachi. He just calmly greeted Naruto before returning back to his tea. It's almost time for the Unification Festival Naruto-sama, Itachi said as he sipped his tea. Glad you have to deal with the paperwork, laughed Yusuke. When they had unified all of the West, Naruto had expected Yusuke to become emperor and was prepared to serve him. Then Yusuke just dumped it all into his lap, saying he wasn't suited for it, and that he needed to spend more time with his wife Keiko. Naruto shuddered. Keiko was a mere civilian, and yet she could easily tame them all with her fist. Even Kisame didn't try to actively piss her off on the threat she would make sashimi and shark fin soup. Having a powerful husband that could do that helped. Plus, everyone agreed Naruto had more charisma and leadership talent. Suddenly, a ninja appeared from the shadows. These ninjas had been trained to truly lie in the shadows, unlike the Eastern shinobis where flashy jutsus were used. The Brotherhood, once an independent guild of assassins, were joined by others and truly perfected the art of silent death. My lord, 2 men wish to meet you. They claim to have intimate knowledge of your life back from the East. Suddenly, the atmosphere went cold. Naruto's life back at the East, along with all the other Easterners, were public knowledge except for Kisame. Nobody really cared since they knew he was violent and loved fighting, but was loyal enough. I see. Have them meet me in the royal throne room. I'll be there shortly, Naruto growled. The ninja walked into the shadows and melded in, disappearing from sight. Naruto walked into the throne room to see two people he would have never imagined ever seeing. Especially since they never even saw him or say anything to him in the first place. Jiraiya, Kakashi. What the hell do you two want? Now, no need to get so hostile, said Kakashi, especially since we're not with Konoha, been for a long time. Naruto stopped at that sentence, completely confused and surprised. Let us explain what happened after you were banished, said Jiraiya. Flashback. Jiraiya-sama, you came back from your lead? Asked Kakashi as he was walking back to the village. It was a dead end for Akatsuki. Nothing new from it, replied Jiraiya. Kakashi had been out for a mission while Jiraiya was following a lead. They met up and were currently walking back to Konoha. Been a few days since I've been gone, said Kakashi. Hopefully, the boys aren't fighting again. I was surprised to see Naruto learn the Rasengan. I had to lecture Sasuke about using Chidori on allies again before I left. Hopefully, our talk made him behave. Doubt it. Sasuke wants power. Hopefully, Tsunade Hime was able to rein him in, mused Jiraiya. They soon entered the gate to see a huge festival going on. Everyone was drinking and celebrating about something. What's the festival for? Asked Kakashi. He saw a random Junin pass by and asked. You don't know Kakashi? Today's a great day. We've finally banished the demon yesterday. What? Said Kakashi and Jiraiya darkly. The Junin was too drunk to notice the tone change. Yay! The council finally decided to banish that Kyuubi brat from Konoha on the premise of death. Banishment's too good for that kid, though. Should have executed him for harming Uchiha-sama. You should be happy, Kakashi. No more having to pretend to care about that herc. The Junin couldn't find himself speaking anymore as Kakashi had suddenly lifted the Junin by his throat. His High-8 was already lifted, showing his Sharingan in full blaze. You've broken the Sandame's law in front of children. Any last words? Growled Kakashi. Stop. Kakashi looked around to see Anbu surrounding them. The law was lifted on the day of Naruto's banishment. Kakashi gave the Junin one more disgusted look before dropping him. Where's Hokage-sama? There's no way she would have accepted this, said Jiraiya. After being pointed to her current residency, they charged in, about to confront her when they saw her state. She had sake bottles littered everywhere. Her henge was off, showing she no longer cared. She stunk of sake, and it seemed like she hadn't taken a shower within 24 hours. What do you two want? Get out. Leave me in peace, she moaned as she drunkenly grabbed another bottle. After getting the full story from Shizune, Jiraiya stayed to help her with Shizune while Kakashi marched out. Just as he got out, he was confronted by Sasuke and the two elder advisors. Kakashi-san, it is the will of the council that you take Sasuke as your personal apprentice and teach him all your jutsus. You should be honored, Kakashi, having a Uchiha be your apprentice. Even with you fake Sharingan, you'll never reach the height of my clan. Be honored that you may teach a true Sharingan user, taunted Sasuke. Kakashi looked at them with an eye smile before he snapped. He leapt forward and snapped a back kick into Sasuke's stomach. He flew quite far, seeing as Kakashi didn't hold back. Kakashi, what have you done? You'll be taken to Ibiki for harming Uchiha-sama, yelled Homura. I'm punishing him for his attempted desertion of the leaf as his sensei, said Kakashi. It was the cursed seal's fault. I'm sure Uchiha-sama would have never left if it wasn't for that and the demon child, spat out Kaharu. That's bullshit and you know it. My seal would prevent it from acting up if he truly didn't want to leave, growled Kakashi. Nonetheless, you harmed the last Uchiha. Anbu, take him in, yelled out Kaharu. Halt. A voice rang out. Everyone looked to see Tsunade had finally left the building. She stared at them before talking. Why is that scum outside? I ordered my shinobis to lock him up, she pointed at Sasuke. Tsunade, be reasonable. If you jail him, It'll cause him to more likely to leave due to injustice, said Homura. Tsunade slammed her fist into the ground, causing the earth to shake. You have no right to countermand my orders on my shinobi. Also, that's Hokage-sama to you. After Sasuke was quickly taken to his house under house arrest, Kakashi went back to his house. 5 hours later, he was summoned to the council. Hitaki Kakashi, Shinobi Junin 009720, you have been summoned in front of the council to explain why you do not want to teach Uchiha-sama the jutsu he deserves to learn, including the Rasengan, said Homura. The Shinobi Council expressed their outrage at this ridiculous charge, while the civilian council was trying to convince the others the Uchiha should learn all that Kakashi had to teach and wanted to also have all the other clans teach him their clan jutsus too. Needlessly to say, it was a bedlam. Tsunade was about to yell for silence, the crackling of lightning, followed by many chirps that could be heard. Everyone looked to the source to find Kakashi with his Chidori blazing at full power. Now that I have your attention, I'd like to announce something. He took his hayate off and tossed it in front of Tsunade. I resign, effective immediately. Everyone was silent at this sudden announcement. Soon, a united uproar came into the room. Everyone was begging or asking Kakashi why. He remained silent, looking at Tsunade only. Alright, fine. Kakashi is no longer a shinobi of the leaf. You are not allowed to join any other villages, though. Kakashi nodded at this before turning around to leave. Before he left, he added, I'm going out of town for a while. Been a long time since I've had a vacation. Tsunade immediately picked up the hidden meaning. He wanted to go find Naruto and ensure he was safe. Alright, approved. You can go. Wait. Everyone turned to look at Danzo, who stood up. If you wish to leave the village, you must relinquish the Sharingan and give it to a worthy successor. Kakashi tossed a scroll onto the floor and activated it, surprising everyone what was in it. There was a jar, and inside it was a floating Sharingan eyeball. Already took it out. Don't need it anymore, replied Kakashi before making a hand sign. Before anyone could react, the jar exploded, destroying the eyeball. I'm not letting anyone take Obito's gift, though. Anbu, seize him for destroying a precious resource, shouted Danzo. Kakashi laughed at this before suddenly dispersing into smoke, showing that it was a shadow clone. Curse him. Send out the hunter nins. We must kill him for doing such a travesty. Add him to the bingo book, said Homura. No. Tsunade's voice was loud and clear. He was officially discharged from service. Nobody will send anyone to find him. That eyeball was his, and he made sure that it wouldn't fall into enemy hands. This meeting is over. Flashback ends. Naruto was staring at Kakashi after they told him their story. He had just noticed that he was wearing a red headband that covered his left eye instead of his usual hayate. His eyes started to water at this revelation. His senseis didn't abandon him after all. They were just at the wrong place at the wrong time, and couldn't help him. Why? He asked. Kakashi took the time to pull out another scroll and unsealed what was inside it. A cabinet with 5 drawers appeared. As Kakashi pulled out each drawer, they could see it was full of paperwork in each one. This cabinet is records of all the time I tried to adopt you. Every time, I was blocked by the civilian council, who controlled the adoption process. Even after each rejection, I still tried. When they threatened me, I pushed back. This process continued until you finally became a shinobi, where I could no longer adopt you. Still, I pushed to become your sensei after that. The council only agreed if I took the Uchiha with you. When I left, I searched all over the elemental nations for you. I stayed with Koyuki after a while I couldn't find you. Imagine my surprise when she knew where you were. Naruto's eyes were streaming with tears now. After wiping them off, he asked, but you barely taught me anything. Even when I asked you to train me for the Chunin exam, you took Sasuke Tem and left me with Ebisu. Kakashi laughed. You really think it was coincident that the first place he took you to train Jiraiya was there? Plus the council forced me to teach him to make sure he would live against a Jinchuriki like you. Naruto realized that Kakashi had already planned with Jiraiya to have him train and make it seem like it was a lucky chance. Jiraiya took this chance to say his piece. After you left, I almost killed the civilian council. The only thing that stopped me was hope that I could find you. When I got a toad saying you took your name out of the contract and jumped over the wall, I was filled with misery. I couldn't tell Kakashi early as he already left, so I decided to do the same and leave Konoha. I claimed asylum with Koyuki-sama later, and she's going to star in my movie, Ika Ika Paradise. Jiraiya had a perverted grin at that before becoming serious. Still, the council would be flipping over if they knew whose child they banished, said Jiraiya. I already know who my parents are, replied Naruto. Kakashi and Jiraiya were surprised. Hiashi gave me a scroll explaining everything, and also gave me my inheritance. Huh, should have known Hiashi would be the one to tell. He was your father's best friend, said Jiraiya, before realizing something. Wait, your inheritance? Naruto nodded, before disappearing in a yellow flash. Huh, guess he learned it after all, chuckled Kakashi as he pulled out his green little book again. It was the latest Ika Ika novel. Naruto soon reappeared with Hinata, Neji, Tenten, Konohamaru, and Hanabi. The five of them were leaking huge bloodlust until Naruto, Kakashi, and Jiraiya explained what happened earlier. Soon, tears and hugs were given. Asuma had almost had a heart attack when you disappeared, chuckled Kakashi to Konohamaru. Konohamaru flinched at the name. It's Maru, now. I didn't want to be reminded of Konoha anymore. You guys know what's happening in Konoha right now? Asked Jiraiya. Back at Konoha, Konoha was at an all-time low. The village had no alliances to any major or minor villages anymore. Wave and Sand broke off all agreements, which was followed by Spring and many other places. In total, every place Naruto had been to that aided Konoha was now being thrown back in their face. At first, the whole village was ecstatic that the demon brat was finally gone, but they did not know the consequences that it would bring them. Even the fire daimyo was furious at them and cut down funding to save face against the other daimyos. They lost one of their best elite Junin and another Sanin and his spy network. Even though it is considered a major village, Konoha was now considered the weakest of all 5 villages, and its position would soon be usurped by the new Sound village. The civilian council, however, didn't care and believed themselves to still be the strongest. However, a new development forced them to recognize the danger they were in. Iwa's Onoki died, and a new Tsuchikage took over who wanted Konoha burned to the ground. Kuretsuchi was slated for it but somehow disappeared. The Sound village had allied itself with Iwa and declared war on Konoha. Without any allies, Konoha would die. What was even worse was Orochimaru had been accepted back in the Akatsuki with the disappearance of Itachi and Kisame. Inside the council room, if we don't find a way out of this, Konoha will fall, declared Tsunade. Her eyes were dull and bags could be seen from under her eyes, signifying she didn't have a good night's sleep. She hadn't had one ever since Naruto had been banished. I don't see what the big problem is, scoffed a pink-haired counselor by the name of Haruno. All we need is Uchiha-sama leading our army and we'll win. In fact, we should make him Hokage right now. While several of the civilian council agreed, all the others were looking at her if she was retarded. Now isn't the time for a new Hokage, said Danzo. If Konoha is to survive, we must look for someone to help us. Even if it means extending past the wall. Silence pervaded the council room at this statement. Then, outbursts could be heard, everyone. Shut up, yelled Tsunade, causing everyone to become silent. Danzo is right, we have no choice. We don't have any alliances here. Perhaps we could strike an alliance with the West. We must find some way to send them an envoy of peace. Back at the Imperial Palace. Konoha's on the verge of being burnt to the ground due to the alliance of Odo, Iwa, and AIM with Akatsuki. I'm sure they are still looking for bijus, but for some reason, most of them have disappeared excluding Gaara and Killer Bee, said Jiraiya. He wanted to explain more, but Naruto held his hand up. I already know what's happening there. My spies are in there, giving me information. As for the Jinchurikis, there is no need to worry. The rest of them are all here at the Western Empire. Jiraiya and Kakashi were surprised at that. They didn't think that the West could have sent agents in to spy and get the bijus to a safe location. Konoha will try to seek us for an alliance and will most likely try to mercilessly exploit us. No doubt Danzo will demand submission, while Sasuke Tem will demand to be the emperor because he deserves it, continued Naruto. Naruto, I know you have no love for Konoha anymore, but I beg of you, convince the romper to at least deter or claim neutrality on this war. There are people still in there who still miss you, like Tsuki and Ayame. Iruka hates that his adoptive little brother is gone, and Tsunade still can't get a good night's sleep, begged Jiraiya and bowed down, head to the ground. You wish to convince the emperor? Asked Hanabi. Jiraiya nodded as well as Kakashi. Maru laughed and all of them pointed at Naruto. He's the emperor, they giggled. At this, Jiraiya and Kakashi dropped the mouths right into the floor. They knew he had potential, but they couldn't imagine that Naruto would become the emperor. I'm not the strongest person in the empire, if that's what you're thinking, said Naruto quickly. There are still many people stronger than me even when I fully tap into Kurama's, Kyuubi's real name, power, but they pledged loyalty because they thought I could make the right decisions and lead the empire into a time of peace. Kakashi and Jiraiya looked at each eye to eye before they started to chuckle. Soon, it became a full-blown laughter, and it was contagious. After they all calmed down, Naruto decided to reveal his plans. You probably don't know, but we hold a grand fighting tournament here. There's one for taijutsu based only, one for weapons based only, and the last one will be any skills allowed. The general rule is killing is allowed, but discouraged, and the participants must follow the proctor's judgment. We hold it to see who's the best, although a select few choose not to participate to let others have a chance. This year, I've made contact with Koyuki for anyone who wants to participate in the tournament to gather at the Land of Spring, and everyone from the villages is invited to join, even Oto and Iwa. Before anyone could even make a protest, a voice rang out. A tournament with your old village. Sign me in. They looked to see Yusuke grinning like a maniac. Behind him was Itachi and Kisame, who decided to join in to see who came, as well as Yakiru. Jiraiya and Kakashi immediately took fighting position until Naruto waved them down. He explained the history behind Hitachi and why both of them came with him to the west, as well as telling them that Yusuke was the one who protected them and brought them over. Soon, lunch was served for them all. So, Naruto, who knows you're here besides us? And how did you get information about the elemental nations? Asked Jiraiya, interested in his spy network. It's the Pakera merchant house, replied Naruto. The merchant house had suddenly appeared in elemental nations and grew extremely quick, making it one of the successful merchandising organization. To see that underneath it was actually a spy ring impressed Jiraiya. They decided to forget about the East for the time being and eat and celebrate a reunion between an emperor, his godfather, and his dad's pupil who could have been his adopted brother. 2 weeks later, in Konoha, Tsunade was drinking again in her office early in the morning. She couldn't sleep without having nightmares, so she resorted to drinking to take away her misery. Minato. Kushina. I couldn't protect you, son. You must be so angry at me right now. She mumbled as she was about to take another sip when the door suddenly burst open. Hokage-sama, our censor nins detected 4 unknown people headed our way. Said the messenger. So, we get people from time to time now, she said. That's the thing. One of them has chakra levels as high as the 9-tailed fox, maybe even higher. Panicked the messenger. Tsunade stood up fast, shaking off all the drunkenness off her. A mysterious person coming to Konoha with a high-level chakra. 4 in total. Maybe Jiraiya found Naruto at last and was bringing him home. Tsunade could certainly reverse the banishment now that she had the fire daimyo's permission. Jiraiya had certainly told her he was going to look for him when he left her. Jiraiya. That name ached in her heart. For years, she had ignored and punched Jiraiya, but the man always had a place in her heart. Even during her self-exile, Jiraiya at least sent her letter or love notes. To see his face full on anger directed at her for being unable to protect his godson while he was out of the village was one of her worst nightmares, next to seeing Naruto's face when his dreams were crushed. Now that he was gone, she missed him so much. Truly, one doesn't know who they truly loved until they are gone. If Jiraiya asked her out on a date anytime, she would finally accept. Put up full alert. Nobody is to engage them. I will personally meet them at the front gates. Have the clan leaders do the same. She ordered the messenger. With that, she ran out of her office to get cleaned up. Tsunade was at the front gate with a nervous Shizune and other clan leaders. Hiyashi was still the clan leader of the Hyuga due to his strength, but the heir was now going to another main branch member by the name of Hideki who certainly enforced the traditional ways. There were rumors how he threatened the branch members with the seal if he didn't get his way, including raping married women. Nobody would confess due to the seal. Tsunade growled at this injustice, but was unable to do anything as it was clan business only. Soon, the 4 mysterious people could be seen in view. Tsunade's heart sank, as she didn't see white hair or spiky blonde on any of the strangers. Instead, 3 people were walking towards them, and the 4th one was sitting on the shoulder of the very tall man. As Tsunade looked at the tall man, she shivered. If words could describe him, Tsunade would say the man bathed in blood. The 4 stopped in front of them, and 2 of them bowed in respect. The tall one just stared at them while the child on his shoulder, well, she was looking at a butterfly. Greetings to the Hokage of Konoha. We are messengers of the Western Empire, here to extend an invitation to a tournament, greeted the woman. As soon as they heard this, bells could be seen ringing in everyone's head. They had been looking for a way to contact them, and they brought themselves here. Thank you for your greetings. Allow us to lead you to the council room, where we can discuss more of this, said Tsunade, leading them towards the tower. The council gathered into the room as fast as possible. Tsunade wanted to avoid the civilian council, but couldn't stop them as news traveled fast about visitors from the Western Empire. Soon, it was full, and many shinobi and citizens were crowding to see them. The well-toned female wore a tight purple spandex with green stripes at the sides. The suit certainly accentuated her figure and her big, and it could be easily seen that she didn't wear underwear, causing quite a few nosebleeds. Her long luscious blonde hair and blue eyes made her a target to chase. The other man wore a white karate gi and kung fu pants. His brown hair and brown eyes made him seem like he was normal, like a civilian. He was built very well, though. Muscles could easily be seen on his arm, and seemed to be leaning towards a lean man instead of a bodybuilder. Tsunade signaled the Anbu guarding the room to quickly shut the door so the meeting could get started. The girl on the man's shoulder was eating a box of chocolate, shutting out the tension in the room. Before Tsunade could speak, Homura spoke first. Well, what brings you here to Konoha? He spat out, looking at them as if they were dirt. None of them responded. Answer us, you stupid bince! Screeched Haruno Asuna. The messengers just looked at each other before looking straight at Tsunade. We were unaware that Konoha managed to employ banshees. Nonetheless, is it not courtesy to allow your esteemed leader to open up the conversation? Said the woman tactfully. The Shinobi Council chuckled at this statement while Homura and Asuna were left steaming. Indeed, I was about to ask when my advisor overstepped her authority. He will be heavily reminded of who is in charge, said Tsunade as she glared at Homura. May I ask your names and your business here as envoys of the West? The female nodded. My name is Furinji Mu, next to me is Shirahama Kenichi. The man with the child on his shoulder is Zaraki Kenpachi and Yakiru Kusajishi. We come on behalf of the Empire to invite Konoha to a tournament. There will be 3 of them, all held at the same place, but at different times to allow everyone to enjoy. The first one will be a taijutsu-based tournament. The second one is a weapons-only tournament. The last one is where anyone can use anything, as long as you obey the proctor. We can explain it in more details later if you like. You will be allowed to enter a maximum of 7 contestants for each one. The person can join more than one tournament, but it will count as one of your entries, of course. I suggest you bring your strongest members to the tournament, otherwise you might not escape humiliation from the other villages. HMPH, I could win this easily, said a voice. The visitors turned to see Uchiha Sasuke smirking, who had taken the council seat of the Uchiha clan. Each of them frowned as they remembered who it was that caused Naruto to be banished in the first place. I am an elite. Nobody stands before me. Well then Uchiha-san, you're volunteering to go to the tournament I presume? Said Kenichi. He did not like how he was eyeing Mew. Know your place, scum, growled Sasuke, his Sharingan blazing. Uchiha Sasuke, turn off your Sharingan. It is forbidden to do that without permission, yelled Tsunade. Sasuke ignored her until the pink-haired girl suddenly appeared in front of his face. Everyone was surprised at the girl's speed and hadn't even noticed her move. Hehehehe, stupid duckbutt doesn't know how to listen or stare, giggled Yakiru as she poked Sasuke's eye with her 2 fingers. The Uchiha roared in pain at this sudden poke and fell down to the ground. He opened his eyes, allowing everyone to see he could still see, although his Sharingan was now off and his eyes were red. Yakiru, don't go poking strangers. You don't know what you'll catch, lectured Mew. Hi, Yakiru replied as she jumped back onto Kenpachi's shoulder. Anbu, seize them for attacking the Uchiha, yelled out Kaharu. Enough. Tsunade slammed her fist into the desk, causing everyone to become silent. It is his own fault for not obeying my order. Do it again, Uchiha, and you will be taken to Anko and Ibiki again. Sasuke growled but obediently obeyed. He knew that she had no real power to do so as long as the civilian council and the elders worshipped him. As my companion was continuing, said Kenichi, the tournament is where our people test their limits. Hold up, I have a question, said Danzo. Kenichi looked at Tsunade, who nodded and allowed Danzo to continue his question. What do you mean by other villages? Asked Danzo. Simple. You are not the only major village being invited to this tournament, replied Kenichi. About now, Kumo, Suna, Iwa, Kurigakure, and even Odo should have received envoys to be invited to this tournament. Tetsu has been given the same offer for weapons. Everyone was silent at this. Tsunade picked up the conversation. You mean, you're also inviting our enemies? Rest assured, you will all have different quarters and will be heavily monitored. No fighting unless it's in the tournament will be allowed. The cages will be allowed to enter the tournament, but is restricted to one tournament choice only. We do encourage them to come watch if they do not wish to participate. We will also allow a maximum of 10 people outside the competitors to accompany you. You will all meet at the Land of Spring, where we will provide transportation to the west, where the tournament will be held. Your daimyos have already been notified and have agreed on a ceasefire in any war for now. The prize money for winning the tournament is 100 million ryo. The council held their breath. With that much money, Konoha would have enough to funds for the war. Until Kenichi said, each. At this, the council burst into cheers. Here was a way to be able to make sure Konoha was the strongest again. They didn't even bother thinking about if they lost. The civilians were too busy imagining the Uchiha bringing home the money. While there was much talk, Danzo kept his eye on Kenpachi. This man, his chakra level is off the roof. If I use my Kotoamitsukami on him, I would have a powerful tool to help me kick Tsunade off and become Hokage, like I should have been. I could rule all the elemental nations. And why stop there? I could have this whole continent bowing before Konoha, thought Danzo. He subtly activated his eye, making sure nobody was paying attention to him and directed it right at Kenpachi. He made sure he used as much chakra as he could to influence him. However, he hit a huge snag on that part. Kenpachi felt the genjutsu and started chuckling. Before long, it started to get louder, catching everyone's attention. Soon, his maniacal laughter could be heard from even the people trying to eavesdrop outside the chamber, and that was something since there were heavy silencing seals to prevent eavesdroppers. All right, who challenged me? Laughed Kenpachi. He drew his sword out, allowing them to get a closer glance at it. It didn't seem special and had jagged edges over it. Before they could think about it, Kenpachi's chakra shot up. A visible yellow aura could be seen around him, and it was growing. Cracks could be seen in the council room, and all the civilian council fainted and relieved themselves of their waste. The shinobi council had trouble trying to prevent themselves from following the same fate. The roof started to let out streams of dust, letting them know that if Kenpachi continued, the roof would fall on them. The Anbu were rooted to their position, fearing too much against the man, until Mew actually stood in front of them. Stop, she said calmly. All of a sudden, that suffocating feeling stopped. Kenpachi glared at her for a while, before reluctantly agreeing to it. Ken-chan, you made me drop a chocolate, pouted Yakiru from his shoulder. She hadn't even moved when Kenpachi raised his chakra levels. What on earth happened? Asked Shikaku. My guess. Someone tried to influence Kenpachi or put him in a genjutsu, which doesn't really work on him since he's very bloodthirsty. Either way is one sure way to make him think someone's challenging him, shrugged Kenichi. Makes you wonder, though, who did it? Tsunade growled at this. Someone had actually tried to control an envoy of the West. This action could have brought the West into the war as enemies, something Konoha did not need. I apologize for this. It was not my intent, nor was it my order, to do such a travesty to you all. Please, allow me to provide a room for you to rest for the night. I promise nobody will try such a thing again. As for the tournament, Konoha accepts. Acceptable. We will leave tomorrow morning back to the Empire to give your answer. The tournaments start in a month, and will last for 6 days. We will graciously host everyone for 9 days. 2 days to get used to our empire, and 1 day to allow yourselves to pack up and leave. We will, of course, provide food, medical assistance, and beds for you all free of charge, replied Kenichi as he bowed with Mew. All of them went walking towards the exit. Wait, stuttered Homura. You need to be punished for such actions in the council room. Perhaps as hostages with Ibiki and Anko at the T&I department until the tournament will teach you. At this, Kenpachi felt this had gone long enough. He ripped his eye patch off, showing that he could see perfectly with his right eye. This surprised all the conscious shinobis until he turned his gaze back at them again and let loose. The yellow aura could be seen again, except this time it thickly saturated the air. A huge skull could be seen forming above him. Just try it, punks. I could use a good fight, though it doesn't really seem like everyone in this village would even provide a good warm-up. Mew and Kenichi showed no signs of evenly remotely trying to stop him. Kuromaru was trying to dig his way out now, his animal instincts telling him to escape. Now, several of the clan heads had followed the civilians' example and fainted, along with the elders. The only people who were still conscious was Tsunade, Hiyashi, Sum, Shikaku, Inochi, Chuza, Asuma, and Danzo, but barely. Tsunade was able to break out of her fear before yelling, "Stop! I promised you all safety, and I'll ensure it. The elders will be brought to the T&I department for suggesting such a thing." Kenichi nodded and put his hand on Kenpachi's arm. Kenpachi just made a tisk noise before putting his eye patch back on and left. Be warned, our rules are quite strict. Do something like this again, and the offender will be executed, no hesitation. Once you have made your decision on who will compete and who will accompany them to visit, give your list to the Pakara merchant house. They are the West's merchant house, after all. Kenichi mentioned before leaving. The shinobis let a sigh of relief out for avoiding such danger when Tsunade whirled upon all of them. Get them all up. I want everyone interrogated. I don't want people who would blatantly try to undermine my authority and think they could get away with it. This includes the elders. Nobody is exempt. No exceptions. Commanded Tsunade as she ran out the room. She would use the Senju compound to house the visitors, but she needed to make sure that it was clean enough. Also, she needed to relay a command to all shinobis. Nobody was allowed to harass them. Danzo was there, steaming. How could Kotoamitsukami fail him? Perhaps he needed to see a doctor and make sure that his Sharingan that he liberated for the good of Konoha was working. When Sasuke woke up, he was disgusted and quickly left to change clothes. His thought process was, how could that man be so much more powerful to me? I should have that. I must get it to kill Itachi, who I'm sure is out there somewhere. His thoughts turned towards the female envoy. I must have her. She will be able to provide powerful children to revive the Uchiha clan. Her beauty belongs to me, just as everything else should be. At all the other major shinobi villages and samurai village. While Konoha received their invite, all the other villages were met with envoys of the West. Suna, Tetsu, Kiri, and Kumo, although wary, accepted peacefully. Iwa and Odo had a bit more trouble. Iwa tried to kill them while Odo tried to keep them hostage for Orochimaru to experiment on. Unfortunately for both of them, they found the tables reversed easily. Yusuke was part of the envoy to Iwa and just blasted their Anbu during the meeting with a shotgun. Odo was met with Nico Robin, who just broke their ninja's back using her Hana Hana no Mi to grow arms all over the ninjas with a clutch before they could do anything. She was accompanied by her husband, Roronoa Zoro, who merely needed to stare at them before they decided to stop. They also accepted. To nobody's surprise, that group took longer to get back to the west due to Zoro. Tetsu agreed for weapons tournament only. Back at Konoha. Hehe, I'm hungry Ken-chan. Let's go eat. Mew mew, Kai-chan, giggled Yukiru after the group had explored Konoha a bit after the meeting. Many citizens were still staring at them, but they ignored it. I wouldn't mind getting something to eat, either. Let's head to that place for lunch, said Kenichi, pointing coincidentally at Ichiraku Ramen. Before they could enter, they were intercepted by several shinobis. They were the leftover bunch of genins in Naruto's generation, Shikamaru, Choji, Ino, Sakura, Shino, Lee, and Kiba. So you're the envoys of the West, huh? Troublesome, said Shikamaru. Choji just kept eating his chips, while Ino and Sakura were carefully studying Mew. Her chests, her well-toned body, and her beautiful legs were certainly something to be envious of. Compared to her, they felt lacking in several departments. Kiba was busy panting like a dog, seeing a beautiful woman, while Shino, was still Shino. Before anyone could do anything, Lee ran in front and kneeled, carrying flowers. O loveliest of beauty, please go out with me. My name is Rock Lee, and my flames of youth tells me you are the perfect match for me, for we both wear spandex suit. Yelled out Lee. Everyone's sweat dropped at this intro. The envoy's first impression was that this man's eyebrows were huge. Mew just looked at him before chuckling a little and replying. I apologize, Lee. You're not my type. Also, I'm already happily N. This woman obviously deserves an elite, like me. Lee, make yourself useful and go bug off, she's obviously going to become one of my wives, interrupted a voice. Everyone looked with disdain as Sasuke stepped forward. Everyone except Sakura, who was still using her loud voice to proclaim how the Uchiha was the greatest. Ino had finally seen the light, though quite forcefully by a combination of Inochi, Anko, and Shikamaru, and stopped trying to chase Sasuke. She was able to recognize that Sasuke was a jerk, and didn't deserve her attention. Her focus, right now, were a bit more focused on looking for other men, especially the lean-looking man next to Mew. How about it, Mew-san? Come with me, and you'll bear my children to help repopulate the Uchiha clan. You obviously deserve someone of my elite status, said Sasuke. Without hearing a reply, he went to grab her hand to pull her towards his home. With luck, he could expect a baby within 9 months. While he was still dreaming, a punch met right into his face. He flew back due to the impact and rolled quite a bit before impacting on a wall, and went through it. Shaking his head, he saw that Kenichi had just punched him and was standing in front of Mew. Do not touch my fiancé, shouted Kenichi. Sasuke growled. This puny man was engaged to the ethereal beauty. Before he could attack, Sakura screamed and threw a punch at Kenichi. You bastard! How dare you attack Sasuke-kun? Stand still so I can beat you! Screeched Sakura. Kenichi merely dodged all of them but didn't counterattack. Why aren't you attacking back? Questioned Ino. She knew this man could have countered Sakura. Sorry, it's a principle of mine to not hurt women, said Kenichi, dodging a kick. Then stand still so I can hit you! Screamed Sakura. That's why I'm here. To hit women that Kenichi won't hit, said Mew, blocking a fist and uppercutting Sakura. Mew then gripped Sakura's neck and kneed her in the chest several times. She then whirled around Sakura, grabbing her head and using it as a center. Mew kneed Sakura in the head again while spinning. She then used the momentum to toss herself up into the air. Sakura, still dizzy from all the attacks she took, didn't notice the danger that was coming and fell to the floor. Spinning like a high-speed drill, one of Mew's leg was straight up, showing how flexible she was. With one of her legs up, and her hugging that leg, the remaining pivot leg came crashing down into Sakura. The ground behind Sakura broke. Furinji Kohyoku, Mew yelled. To the audience who saw this, they could have sworn that feathery wings sprouted at the end of her attack, with Mew at the center of it. Such power, such grace, such beauty. She will belong to me, thought Sasuke as he prepared to use his Sharingan to hypnotize this woman to come with him. Before he could do such a thing, a pan met with his face, knocking him unconscious. I've told you before, Uchiha scum, you're not allowed to stop within 100 feet of my shop and my daughter after that stunt you tried to pull, yelled Tuki, who had come out to see what was going on. Anbu units appeared before them. Mew and Kenichi were ready to fight, when one of the Anbu with a dragon mask stepped forward. Do not worry. We are here to arrest Haruno Sakura and Uchiha Sasuke for harassing you. Hokage-sama ordered all shinobis to not do so. Unfortunately, it seems Uchiha-san thought himself above the rules. They will be taken to the T&I department to be re-educated on following orders. The Anbu took Sasuke to Anko, while Sakura was first taken to the hospital for treatment. Kiba whistled. He wanted to hit on Mew, but he knew when to back off if a woman was already claimed by another man. That, and the woman didn't seem afraid to kick him in the balls if she needed to, and Kiba preferred to remain a man. That was powerful, said Shino. You folks are certainly welcomed in my shop if you don't like the Uchiha, laughed Tuki. After a quick introduction, the envoys went into the ramen shop while the rest of the shinobis went onto their own business. Orders were quickly placed, and soon 4 steaming hot ramen were ready. Tuki didn't notice that Mew had subtly placed a silencing seal on the flaps, so nobody could overhear what they would say while they were eating. This ramen is pretty good. I can see why Naruto recommended this place, said Kenichi casually as he finished his meal. Ayame and Tuki froze up at that statement before tears started to fill their eyes as they remembered the little boy they had come to see as family. Where is he? Please, tell me where my favorite little brother went, sobbed Ayame. She was so heartbroken when Naruto was banished that she could barely help out at the shop. The Uchiha tried to take advantage of her and wanted to practice, making babies with her while saying any child wouldn't be part of the Uchiha clan and should be proud he lowered himself to her. That day, Sasuke found out that a ramen cook that occasionally dealt with ninjas and was filled with rage shouldn't be trifled with. Kenichi looked around to make sure nobody was listening in before continuing. He's fine right now. He's at the Western Empire. Naruto wishes that he could see you two again, but couldn't risk dying. He tossed a pouch to Tsuki. This should more than cover our meal and all the meals Naruto ate at your place on his tab. As they all left to head back to the location Tsunade had promised to let them sleep at, Yakiru mentioned, "That was good, Kun, Aya-chan. If you wanna leave with us, just show up, see ya," as Kenpachi opened the flap to let them all out. As soon as they left, Tsuki and Ayame quickly closed the business for the day before rushing upstairs to the privacy of their house. They opened the pouch to see priceless gems and gold. What caught their attention, though, was a letter with Naruto's handwriting. Opening it up with shaky hands, they read the letter. Soon, the letter became illegible as tears were dripping down on the letter. Quickly, they burned it to show now proof. As it was burning, Tsuki looked at Ayame and said, "Well, I think it's time we relocated our business. We haven't been doing well here, and I see a prospective place we can open." After the incident with the Uchiha, nothing much happened after. Anko saw that Miu didn't wear a bra like her, but asked what else she didn't wear. When Miu told her that she felt like any lingerie was too constricting and didn't wear it, Anko left with a nosebleed and muttering about leaving her underwear behind. Rock Lee felt crushed that the only spandex-wearing girl was already engaged, but didn't allow it to dampen his flames of youth. Rather, he worked even harder for the tournament that was to come. Sasuke was forbidden from even seeing the envoys until they left. The elder advisors tried to argue against that, but Tsunade was adamant about it. They needed to be able to talk to the West in good terms, and stealing and forcefully raping one of the envoys was not a good way to start. Morning arrived, and the envoys gathered at the gate. Tsunade decided to say farewell in person, along with Hiashi and a few others. Kenichi shook Tsunade's hand before leaning in and whispering something in her ears. They left shortly after. If they paid attention, they would have noticed that Ayame and Tsuki had left with them, but all eyes were at Kenpachi, who was flaring his chakra for amusement. Everyone left to attend to their own business except for Tsunade, who was standing there, shocked from what Kenichi had just told her. "Hiashi, Asuma, come with me," she commanded. Puzzled, the two of them followed her into her house. Tsunade would have chosen the Hokage's office, but didn't feel like it was secure enough for this. Inside her house was a private room where the Shodaime Hokage built personally, preventing any type of seal or eavesdroppers from listening. "Alright, Hokage-sama, what's this about?" said Asuma as he chewed on his unlit cigarette. After marrying Kurenai, he stopped smoking for their baby's safety. She was born 2 years after Konohamaru left to chase Naruto. His action devastated him and his brother and felt like they had failed their father. Kurenai helped him from his misery and married shortly after. "It's about the Konohamaru and your children and nephew, Hiashi. They're alive along with Naruto in the West." Hiashi stood still at this announcement. He had prayed that they were safe, but always feared for the worst. Soon, his stoic visage shattered, he fell to his knees, crying all those tears he had not allowed to show in front of anyone. Asuma wasn't holding back either and was crying. Tsunade felt a huge burden being lifted off her. Naruto was still alive. After tears were shed, Tsunade told them her plan. "I'm going to go see the tournament. Konoha can last without me for a little. No doubt the other villages' Kage will also attend. There's no way they would miss out on a chance to see the West without any danger. I'm taking Shizune as part of the escort, and I'm extending the invites to you too. I will attend. Anything to see my children and nephew again," stated Hiashi. "Is it possible to invite my wife and child? I was planning to participate in this tournament, and I don't feel safe leaving them here alone without me," asked Asuma. Tsunade thought about it before accepting his conditions. Naruto, Tsunade thought, I failed you once already. I won't let anyone prevent me from seeing you again. At Akatsuki base, the West has sent invitations to all the major villages and has decided to invite Oto, too, reported Orochimaru. Everyone had summoned shadow images of themselves to the base to plan for the future. It had been hard to grab the Bijus, now they all went missing except for Gaara and B, who were well protected. Several times, they cornered some, but they all managed to escape due to mysterious circumstances. Gaara managed to defeat them in his own village, although not without some sort of mysterious help. Deidara's bomb suddenly fizzled at the last moment, allowing Gaara to recover and push them back. Next time, Gaara was well prepared for the bomber. It didn't help that Itachi and Kisame suddenly went Mia. Even the Sanbi Jinchuriki, the one Tobi hypnotized, mysteriously disappeared. He had been overthrown, and was about to be killed when something intervened. The end result was he was gone with the wind. They have also asked the cages to come visit. If Konoha's cage does leave, this could be our chance to strike. They are desperate for the prize money, continued Orochimaru. To be honest, I wouldn't mind entering myself, said Kakuza. That much Ryo, plus the chance to collect a few worthy bounties would be worth it, especially what happened last time. You think too much of money, Kakuza. Jashin does not like those who worship money. Although the tournament would provide many sacrifices for Jashin, too, yelled Hidan, before he started to praise Jashin over and over again. Pain muted him, to the relief of everyone. They had finally figured out how to mute someone if they got too noisy, and used on Hidan most of the time. Hidan was never told about the mute button and so never noticed that nobody was listening to him. Orochimaru, you will also go as cage to the tournament. We cannot allow the Konoha to have the chance to gain so much Ryo at once. This can also serve as a good time to spy on the West while gaining money for our cause, commanded Pain. Take Zetsu with you. He will remain hidden and be useful for spying. Orochimaru nodded, pleased to be able to see the West. He had heard many things about them and wanted to explore and exploit them. If he was lucky, the Emperor would be a fool and allow him to possess his body. Then he would become emperor of such a large nation and perhaps become immortal. Continue as planned. Earn money, and locate the Bijus. Do not attract attention to our group. Dizumi. Actually, there's one more thing the envoys mentioned to me, interrupted Orochimaru. Conan coldly stared at him for disrupting Pain and not bringing it up earlier. They told me that I was allowed to bring Akatsuki members as part of the visiting group and/or participants. It seems their spy network extends farther than I thought if they already knew I'm part of this group. Everyone blinked. They were all S-class missing nins, and they were getting invited to participate in the tournament. All right then. Deidara, Hidan, Kakuza. You three will participate in the tournament. Hidan will go for the weapons-only tournament while the other two will be in the last one. Dismissed. All right, I can sacrifice more people for Jashin. Yelled out Hidan. Nobody heard as the mute button was still on him. Back to the envoys. So, how are we getting there? Asked Ayame as she was carried by Kenichi. Miu gave her dirty looks but understood that they needed to get to their location fast. Kenpachi was carrying Tsuki. We're not running all the way back, if that's what you're thinking, replied Kenichi. They stopped at a spot before Yakiru took out a gun and shot a flare up into the sky. Soon, a loud rumbling noise could be heard. Tsuki and Ayame looked up in awe and shock at the sky before it came down. We're going back in style, grinned Miu before they all got in and went back to the west. At the palace, Naruto was at his usual council meeting. His council was actually quite uncorrupted, for each one had to be tested and pledged loyalty to help the people, not themselves. He had a clone back in his office doing paperwork. He sighed. Oh, how he loved to abuse the crap out of shadow clones. It was so useful. It didn't make sense why none of the other cages ever used this jutsu. He made a slightly perverted grin. Hinata and he would use it during their activities in their bed. There was just so many different ways they could go at it, and it would seem Hinata was more perverted than him. It was always the quiet ones, wasn't it? Naruto-sama, you're doing it again, fufufufu, scolded Oki, one of Naruto's greatest general. Naruto shook his head out of his daydream. Oki seriously scared him sometimes. His personality and the way he acted around people creeped him out sometimes, but as a general and friend, he was irreplaceable. I will admit, Kit, your vixen does certainly keep you entertained and wanting for more, said Kurama. We have received word of that all the villages have accepted and will convene at the Land of Spring, announced a counselor. Naruto grinned. This would be so much fun to see. 1 month later, after receiving invitations to the tournament, every village held their own mini tournaments and made decisions on who would go. Soon, their decisions were made and the list was sent to the Pakara merchant house. Everyone was surprised that the merchant house that had made such an impact on them, bringing foreign goods, actually belonged to the West. They were a bit cautious about them but decided it wasn't worth attacking in fear of angering the West. That, and they had high-level seals in each of their stores that it was not worth the manpower to break in. The list was as followed. Leaf, Taijutsu, Sasuke, Lee, Kiba, Guy, Hideki, Choji, Sakura, forced in by Asano. Weapons, Asuma, Yugao, 3 random Chunin. Mixed. Sasuke, Kiba, Shikamaru, Shino, Anko, Sai, Tenzo. Visitors, Tsunade, Shizune, Hiyashi, Kurenai and Child, Hana, Ino, Homura, Ebisu, Uruka. Suna. Taijutsu, 5 random Chunin. Weapons, Tamari, Matsuri, 4 other random Chunin. Mixed. Tamari, Baki, 5 random Junin. Visitors, Gaara, Konkuro, Chio, 2 civilian council members. Kumo. Taijutsu, C, 4 random Chunin. Weapons, Darui, B, Samui, Atsui, Karui, Omoi. Mixed. A, B, Darui, C, Samui. Visitors, Mabui, J, 3 civilian council member, 2 shinobi council member. Kiri. Taijutsu, 4 random Chunin. Weapons, new 7 swordsman group, led by Chojuro and Suigetsu. Mixed. Chojuro, Suigetsu, 4 random Junin. Visitors, Mei, Ao, elder advisor. Aiwa. Taijutsu, 6 random Chunin. Weapons, 4 random Chunin. Mixed. Akatsuki, Suzembaki, 5 Junin. Visitors, 4th Tsuchikage, naming him Tsutomu, 3 random members of council, 4 shinobi bodyguard. Oto. Taijutsu, 5 random Chunin. Weapons, Hidan, 3 random Chunin. Mixed. Shin, Kodoheim, Orochimaru, Deidara, Kakuza. Visitors, Karen, Arashi, Zetsu Black and White, Kabuto. Tetsu. Weapons, Mifune and his 4 top samurais. Around 120 people traveled to the Land of Spring, wondering how they would get to the west. They imagined that several ships would be waiting for them. Each of them could not wait to see what the west had for them, and of course, were ready to show how superior they were. They couldn't see how wrong they were. At the Land of Spring. Soon, everyone had gathered there around noon. There were, of course, sparks of anger and restlessness among all the shinobis. Seeing their enemies so close, and yet unable to do anything about due to their daimyos agreeing to a ceasefire made them nervous. Tsunade certainly growled when she saw Orochimaru smirking at her. The Iowa ninjas were staring at Konohas with hatred. Troublesome, said Shikamaru, if the West doesn't do something, a fight's gonna break out. Agreed, rang a voice. The Konoha group turned around to see Gaara leading his Kazekage-sama. The Konoha group bowed. Gaara was furious at Konoha when he heard that Naruto was banished, and broke off all alliance with them. He tried to send his shinobis after Naruto to offer sanctuary as Suna Nin, but was too late. Naruto had disappeared, and Gaara was depressed. He made it his dream to become cage for himself and Naruto. Every time Gaara saw Sasuke now, he had to resist the impulse to sand coffin his body. It's been a long time, Gaara dono, said Tsunade. Gaara merely nodded. He was also still mad at Tsunade for not being able to do anything. While Konoha and Suna mingled for a bit, with Shikamaru flirting with Tamari, a weird sight to see, the rest of the shinobi villages and the samurai kept to themselves. Soon, a loud ringing noise could be heard, and everyone looked to the source to see Koyuki standing in front of them all with a loudspeaker. Attention, attention. The ride to the west will arrive in approximately 10 minutes. Please be prepared and take all you items with you. Do not cause trouble, or you will be escorted off my land and miss the tournament. Man, that's the daimyo who's also the actress who starred the main character in the latest and hottest movie ever, Ika Ika Paradise. That's hot, said Atsui. What if the ride doesn't come in 10 minutes, what if it's a trap? Then we'll all be stuck here with no allies, and the Omoi kept continuing until Samui hit him on the head to shut him up. 10 more minutes, huh? Hopefully, nothing will happen, said Shizune, until she looked up at Koyuki. Wait, isn't that? She pointed at the person next to Koyuki. The Suna and Konoha group, as well as Kumo and Kiri all, looked to where she was pointing. Gravity-defying silver hair, a bandana that covered his left eye, wearing a face mask that covered everything but his eye, and carrying the trademark orange book, everyone recognized him. Kakashi, yelled out the Konoha group. He turned around to the voice, looking at them, before turning his attention back to his book. Everyone face-faulted at his attitude, while Guy was moaning about his ex-rival's hip attitude. Tsunade was about yell for him when he noticed another person, someone she had not seen in 7 long years. Long white hair, red lines on his face, a horned forehead protector with the kanji oil. Jiraiya was also here. Her heart leapt. Maybe she could convince him to come back. Maybe she would have the chance to finally date Jiraiya, even if it meant dealing with his perverted personality. Jiraiya noticed the Konoha group and gave a small wave before noticing Tsunade. In her eyes, he noticed that she had not slept well at all. Even though she kept continually rejecting him, Jiraiya always cared for her no matter what. He was surprised to see that within those brown eyes, a glimmer of hope had been brought back in, as well as love. Shaking it off, he tapped Kakashi on the shoulder, signaling him to come with him to greet Konoha at least. Sighing, Kakashi put his book away, but not before pulling his mask down and giving Koyuki a peck on the lips. Koyuki giggled and blushed, but kept her calm. Putting back his mask, he shunshined down to where Konoha was with Jiraiya. What's up? He asked casually. Everyone who cared except for Sasuke, Hideki, and Homura, were staring or pointing at him, stuttering. Finally, Ino was able to talk first. You're Koyuki-sama's boyfriend, she shrieked. Everyone automatically looked at the person who was supposedly Koyuki's boyfriend. Nope, said Kakashi, causing everyone looking to Facefo. Clearly, he had kissed her, so that didn't make sense. Baka Kakashi, you're playing with her feelings, screeched Sakura, who Kakashi ignored. How unyouthful, my ex-rival. You shouldn't play with a maiden's feeling, shouted Guy, with Lee supporting for him. Did you say something, Guy? Kakashi asked, causing Guy to cry crocodile tears. If you're not dating her senpai, then what are you doing? Asked Tenzo. She's my fiancé, said Kakashi nonchalantly. Everyone froze at that announcement. They just noticed that Kakashi was actually wearing fine silk robes, like Koyuki. Yep, confirmed Jiraiya. He and Koyuki-sama will be getting married soon. He even starred as my male cast in my movie, too. He said with a perverted grin. What? That's so not hot, moaned Atsui. That man got good move, you've already lost. To get a gal like her, Need to be smooth, like groove, rapped B, who was instantly subjected the iron claw from A. Well, it was good seeing most of you. I have to get back to escorting my fiancé, said Kakashi before shunshioning back to her. Jiraiya was about to do the same when he felt a pull on his clothes. Turning around, he was surprised to see Tsunade holding on to his clothes. Except for this time, she was like a child who had lost her way and was now clinging onto him like a lifeline. Tsunade Haim, Jiraiya asked. Please, don't leave me, Tsunade wept. I didn't know how much you meant to me when you left. I finally get to see you after 7 years. Don't leave me so fast now. Seeing her in this state broke Jiraiya's heart, and so he hugged her, surprising Tsunade. Usually, Tsunade would be punching him for being so affectionate, but this hug felt warm and comforting. Don't worry, my Haim. Everything will be alright. I promise to be back again soon. I'm coming to the west with Koyuki's party. They were invited, too, whispered Jiraiya before letting her go. Tsunade wanted more hugs but knew that she had an image to maintain. Jiraiya shunshined back to where Kakashi was to see Koyuki with a teasing smile. So, after so many years, you finally got the girl of your dreams, teased Koyuki. Jiraiya just turned around, not letting her see his red face. A beeping noise could be heard from her watch all of a sudden. She looked at it quickly before grinning. Attention everyone. All chatter ceased at this announcement. The ride to the west has just arrived. All the attendees turned their attention to the sea, trying to see if there was a boat or ship arriving. They saw nothing and were about to yell if she was playing a joke when she merely pointed up. A humming noise could be heard from the skies, so they looked up and jaws dropped everywhere. A large airship was descending from the heavens themselves right in front of them. As the airship landed at the sea in front of them, a platform popped out from the ship to allow them in. A man with yellow hair and a stubble came out of the ship. He had goggles and a spear in his hand, and his whole aura spoke volumes of him. Here was a man who had been into many wars and fought in them. Everyone became slightly scared of the West at this airship. It was common tactics that if you had the higher ground, you had the advantages. Here, the West could always have the higher ground now. Alright punks, my name's Sid. This beauty's here name is Highwind, and I'll be your captain today, the man introduced himself. I've got a few rules to go over with you, and I don't wanna be your babysitter for too long. 1. Don't fight in my ship. 2. Don't annoy me. 3. Don't mess with my crew. 4. Don't go into areas you're not allowed to. I have guards there and notification seals, so don't think I won't know. And the 5th and important rule, don't annoy me. Anyone who doesn't follow these rules while in my ship gets booted off immediately. You mean kicked off after we land? Asked Karui. So we would need to find some other way back home. No, I mean booted off my ship literally, while the ship is still flying, clarified Sid. It's gonna be about 10 kilometers from the airship to the land, so I hope you guys know how to fly if you don't follow my rules. Everyone paled at this. Nobody wanted to fall off from that high of a distance, even if there was water below them. I think it might be best if we don't try to spy on the ship for now, whispered the black Zetsu to the white Zetsu, who nodded. Soon, everyone got on board the ship to what seemed to be a storage room. They were amazed that there was enough room for all of them. Omoi was worried that the ship was a trap, or that they would all fall while falling, and continuing off his list of extreme worries. Sid got very annoyed at him, and duct taped his mouth shut, deciding it wasn't worth kicking someone off, yet. The Kumo group actually thanked him for doing them a service. Soon, the airship's engine started, and everyone could see and hear the blades on the ship to rotate, making a chopping noise before it became a hum. The platform was closed, and the airship lifted off back into the air. Everyone was nervous and amazed at this. Then 20 minutes after launch, a melodious ringtone could be heard, followed by a voice. Attention everyone. This is Shira, your vice captain of the ship. You are now free to move around the ship. If you take the stairs up, you'll be able to enjoy the view from above. Please do note that any room that says staff only, do not attempt to enter. If you do not, then you'll be booted off the ship, and I'll be the one who gets to enjoy kicking you off. Even got a plank for you to walk off before I kick you in the, interrupted Sid. Like he said, you will be forced off the ship in an unpleasant manner. Please do enjoy the view, though, continued Shira, that is all. Another ring tone followed it, signifying the announcement was over. Everyone looked at each other before scrambling up the stairs to get a view from above. Even if most of them were trained assassins, they couldn't help but want to enjoy a view from above. To be able to fly was many people's dream. Sasuke merely brooded in the storage room, among with a few others. Tsunade enjoyed the view, but her first priority was to find Jiraiya. After searching high and low, she finally found him talking to Mei. Her hands shaking, she quickly walked over to him. She could see that the woman was flirting heavily with him, and didn't to lose her chance. She grabbed Jiraiya and stormed away with him apologizing and being dragged. Mei pouted at the loss of her chance. Don't worry, milady, said Ao. That single moment won't happen again. I'll be sure to always delay anyone who interrupts your conversation. The moment won't happen, always, delayed, single, thought the Mizukage. It interpreted to, that moment where you won't be single will always be delayed. Shut up, Ao, or I'll kill you, said Mei, causing Ao to cry. Jiraiya finally got tired of being dragged and healed, stopping Tsunade in her path. Tsunade Haim, what's wrong? He asked. He didn't get an answer because Tsunade whirled around and kissed him, hard. Jiraiya was surprised at this sudden movement but didn't complain. Instead, he kissed back, pushing her into a wall. They stopped when they needed to go up for some air. I missed you, muttered Tsunade. Don't get used to this, though. I have an image to maintain, still. I wouldn't have it any other way, replied Jiraiya. They would have kissed again, and perhaps find a room to explore further when a commotion took their attention. They looked to see an Iwa ninja harassing one of the crew members, trying to get into a restricted zone. Many of the shinobis looked with interest to see how this would be handled. Then, a slim woman with brown hair and glasses came by. Please, sir, do not try to cause any more trouble and we will overlook this incident, said the woman. Ha, you think you can order me, an Iwa Junin, around? Go back to whoring yourself, said the Iwa nin, not knowing he had just sealed his doom. A spear came flying right into his shoulder, lifting him off the ground and making him fly about 10 feet before being pinned onto the wall. Everyone looked to see Sid had thrown it, and he looked very pissed. Nobody dared to block his way, and a direct path was formed from him to the idiotic ninja. Sid yanked the spear out and dragged the Iwa nin with him. Everyone followed him, interested to see what would happen. Get the plank out. I get to use it again, stated Sid. The crew members happily agreed, and soon a door was opened with a plank sticking out. Sid forced the shinobi onto the platform. The shinobi did his best to not fall off by putting chakra on his feet and sticking onto the plank. Alright, you've broken all 6 of my rules, announced Sid. Everyone looked confused. He only said 5 and repeated one of them for emphasis. What's the 6th rule? Asked a random Kumo nin. Don't insult my wife Shira, replied Sid, causing the Iwa nin to freeze. He knew he was screwed, but he wasn't going to go down without a fight. Before he could do anything, Sid said, say this is madness if you wanna live for 4 more seconds. Confused, the Iwa nin said, this is madness. Not knowing he was just creating his own death scene. This is Highwind, shouted Sid as he recreated the kick he saw from a movie about Spartans. Obviously, he didn't use the same line, but he didn't have any good ones, so he thought his ship's name was appropriate. The Sparta kick sent the Iwa nin over the edge and tumbling down off the ship. Everyone looked in horror to see Sid wasn't joking about his threat as the poor Iwan Nin disappeared from sight. "He's not gonna live through that," said a crew member. "That's the fourth one this month, right?" asked another crew member. "Pay up, I win." It was interesting to see that the crew members were already used to their captain's antics. "Least he didn't make a mess last time some idiot insulted his wife," said the third crew member. Everyone decided it might be safer if they didn't go near any of the crew members. "Sid always backs his threats," chuckled Jiraiya. "You've been to the West before?" asked Tsunade sharply. "Of course," he chuckled. "They have very good connections with Koyuki-sama. It's a shame that wasn't Sasuke. Would have made life so much better." Tsunade had to agree on that. After 2 hours of flying, the same melodious tone rang out again, signifying another announcement. "Attention. This is Shira, your vice captain speaking. We will be arriving at the Imperial City within 15 minutes. Please remember to bring all your items with you when you get off the Highwind. We will not be responsible for any lost items. If you look through the windows now, you should be able to see the Imperial City coming into view." Everyone scrambled to see the city. Soon, the clouds parted, and everyone could see the city in its glory. It was huge, much bigger than Konoha or any of the shinobi villages. So many buildings and streets, and there were towers all over. And yet, its busy streets were well organized and beautiful. The scenery was breathtaking. At the center of the city was the Imperial Palace in all its glory. On the far right, they could see a huge Colosseum, where they would fight. The Easterners couldn't wait to test their skills against the West, hoping to show them what it meant to use chakra. It would be a painful lesson for those who were not ready.